Hi, I'm Shan Wu with a Undercolor of Law hot take on a recent headline about an investigation into Jack Smith's and his team's conduct. So we'll put up the Washington Post headline for you, and it talks about an internal review going on at the Justice Department. So this is important to break down because not only I want to explain why this is a little bit of much ado about nothing and how it's a normal practice in certain instances within the Justice Department, but it's also important because there's going to be an awful lot of requests for internal reviews, and given who's going to be running the Justice Department, I think we're going to see a lot of these. So it's good to understand how these work and, frankly, how they may get distorted and perverted in the future. So this particular situation that they're talking about was in the Mar-a-Lago investigation and prosecution, where one of the prosecuting attorneys was the subject of a complaint. And it may have arisen with the attorney, Brat, himself, telling his superiors at DOJ, telling Jack Smith, that there had been this complaint that was made. So at the time that this happened, it got some publicity. The Guardian reported, I think, first on this. And here's what actually happened. It was during a meeting with Walt Nauta, if you remember, that's Trump's personal valet, who was also implicated and charged in the Mar-a-Lago documents retention case. And so when the prosecutors asked to meet with Nauta's attorney, and they asked to meet with them in a sort of an urgent kind of fashion because they wanted to pitch to them the idea of Walt Nauta turning state's witness to cooperate. So that's sort of a kind of a sensitive issue and something urgent for them because they want to get that going if they can early in the prosecution. Well, when Nauta's attorney arrives, a guy named Woodward, he's seated with several of the prosecutors, including Brat, who is the chief of the counterintelligence section. And Brat explains to the attorney that they want Nauta's cooperation against Trump. Now, at that point, usually a lawyer will want to hear what are the particular reasons why my client should cooperate, what are you going to give them, etc. And they're also saying that we've usually got your client in a little bit of a vice here because we can show that they did something wrong, or in this case, they're saying that maybe Nauta had given false statements previously. At some time during this kind of conversation, which you can imagine is a pretty pressured sort of conversation by intent because you want to convince the lawyer for the defendant that you really got the goods on the defendant and they should, flip. At some point during this, Brat supposedly said to the lawyer that he didn't think the lawyer was a Trump guy and had noted that he understood that Woodward had an application pending to be a judge at the Superior Court in Washington, D.C. Now, this type of a remark is not at all unusual. Lawyers know each other. Brat's been at this for a while. He may have known Woodward. It would be fine to be making sort of shop talk, or even, hey, I understand you have an application pending to be a judge. Good luck with that sort of thing. But based on this conversation, Woodward apparently made a complaint, and OPR, which is the Office of Professional Responsibility, began to look into it. So let's first take a moment and explain what is OPR. They're a little bit like an internal affairs division in the police department. We've all seen movies and TV series about that. Maybe even a little bit like the HR department. But it's different in this way. The existence of OPR really reflects the importance of ethics for prosecutors and the importance and emphasis given to that within DOJ in particular. The difference for prosecutors and other litigator lawyers is it's not just about winning cases. There's an additional ethical obligation to do things such as disclose Brady evidence. That's evidence which could help the defendant. It's called exculpatory evidence. So the prosecutors have a higher duty. You have to adhere to the ethics of prosecution as well as even sometimes helping the other side, because the point isn't just about winning cases. That's kind of the nutshell of the professional responsibility that OPR is charged with making sure happens within the Justice Department. So here, when there's been a complaint made, sometimes the prosecutor wants OPR to look at it to clear them. And Jack Smith's team apparently says there's no truth to the idea that this was an improper remark. If you take a look at the spin being put on it, Trump's spin was that it was a bribe that they're offering to make him a judge in return for doing something against Trump, or that's intimidation. The lawyer Woodward said that he was taken aback at this. He understood it to mean that maybe your application won't go so well, if you don't help out. So assuming that the statement actually happened, my take on it is somewhat careless on the prosecutor's part to make that kind of statement, because even though you make small talk all the time, it's this part that I would say wasn't so smart to say, which is, quote, "You don't seem like a Trump kind of guy," quote unquote. It's not that that's intimidation in the sense of we're going to ruin your chances for the judgeship, because first of all, prosecutors have nothing to do with that at all. So that's a big stretch there. But it's just not the best kind of remark to make, because it implies some sort of judgment against the defense lawyer. Like, I would have thought that, you're not the kind of guy to take on this sort of client. That's a little bit questionable. Defense lawyers are just doing their job. It's just like the defense lawyer saying, why are you working for Biden or something like that. It's just not the right kind of conversation to be having. So it's just careless. And the other reason it's a bad idea is because if you think it through, what effect is that going to have on the defense counsel? These are not folks who are going to be greatly intimidated by talking to DOJ. I mean, Woodward's been around the block. He's had important cases before. If you say something like that, "I didn't think you were a Trump kind of guy," it's either going to make him pissed off and make him more aggressive, or raise their hackles and make them dislike you and not want to work with you. That relationship, actually, something to emphasize, in the criminal bar, the lawyers for both sides tend to be pretty cordial. It's kind of funny because in civil cases, they're actually much more assholic towards each other. They're yelling, pounding on tables. That's not so true in the criminal practice. So you don't really want, either as a defense lawyer or as a prosecutor, to say something that's going to piss off the other side. So here you can see what happened, right? I mean, at the very least, if it didn't piss him off, he saw it as a way to exploit a potential vulnerability by saying, "Hey, what are you bringing up my judgeship application for? Maybe you're trying to intimidate me." So it wasn't a good move there, but on a substantive basis, it really should not amount to very much, because it's not that direct of a nexus to some kind of result in the case. Now, you might want to compare this to things that the likely next Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, did with regard to a witness in the January 6th committee, Cassidy Hutchinson. So you may not recall this, it was a while back, but let's put up a screenshot here, that Cassidy Hutchinson was getting a lot of pressure from Trump world attorneys, very mob-like in what they were saying for her to do. Like at some point she was told to, quote, "stay loyal." So here's what Pam Bondi, the next Attorney General, said. She texted her and talked about, I just had dinner with POTUS president at Mar-a-Lago tonight. Call Matt Schlapp next week. He has a job for you that we all think you'd be great at. You are the best. Keep up the good work. Love and miss you. Now, that's subtle, okay? But she's about to testify. And so obviously Bondi thought nothing of trying to influence the testimony that way. Now, the Justice Department under Merrick Garland seems never to have considered whether this was worth looking at in a criminal way. There were other even more blatant things that had been said. You can take a listen for a second to Paul Reed at CNN summarizing some of the more blatant aspects.
Exactly, Caitlin. The committee did not identify these people, but CNN has learned that Stefan Pastino, the top ethics attorney in the Trump White House, is the lawyer who allegedly advised his then client, former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson, to tell the committee that she did not recall details that she actually did. And interestingly, Trump's Save America Political Action Committee funded Pastino and his law firm, including paying for his representation of Hutchinson.
I bring that up to compare that to Brat's remark to give you some context about what gets people attention and what doesn't. Now, the Republican Oversight Committee has complained that even though there is this investigation going on, they have said that they think it's silly that the fox is investigating the henhouse, so to speak. But that doesn't make any sense, that complaint, because there's nobody else to investigate these sorts of internal issues. So it's actually a good thing that there's an office of OPR. Now, it's unlikely this is going to affect these cases because, number one, the cases are dead. They've been dismissed. Second of all, just to have context, because again, this is going to come up a lot in the next 4 years. Questions about the propriety of prosecutions, what should be done, what shouldn't. Let's take a look at a case from a while back, Ted Stevens in Alaska's case, where Eric Holder, when he was Attorney General, he dismissed the case because allegations came up that the prosecutors had misbehaved. They had withheld Brady evidence, and the federal judge there actually appointed a special investigator on the court's part to look at it. Once they did that and made like 500 pages worth of findings, OPR separately also began their investigation. That conviction was abandoned. They gave up on the case because they felt the prosecutors had done something wrong. Very high-profile investigation, obviously. One prosecutor committed suicide during the pendency of that investigation about ethics. Now, one question I have is, gee, we've had a lot of other prosecutors you might want to take a look at here. David Weiss, who has been going after Hunter Biden for his entire career, it seems like, almost a half decade. On charges that are really mundane, should have taken about a week to resolve them. I'm exaggerating, but it took way too long. John Durham, remember him? I wrote about John Durham, saying that he frankly had wasted taxpayer money, owed the people an apology. I mean, this is something where he basically got paid to have dinner with Bill Barr all the time, and he brought these two cases that were complete failures. Wouldn't be a bad idea to take a look at those cases as well. But looking forward, there is going to be a lot of complaints about what's been done in the past with DOJ, and there's going to be a lot of pressure to make DOJ look at other people with bad investigations. And keep in mind, OPR is a office that's staffed by career professionals. So you're going to read some pundits saying that that's a good thing because it means that no matter what Trump does, it's still the career professional who's doing it. They're going to be able to shut that stuff down. They can move those people, they can lean on them, they can even make it easier to fire career professionals. So the fact that it's traditionally been somewhat independent within DOJ, and there's an org chart that we can show to show you where it is, it's a little group by itself, that doesn't really protect it here. But what does protect it going forward is you want to start these cases and make Trump shut them down. So it's great they started this now, it's already ongoing. And then if Trump tries to do something, if Bondi tries to get rid of the person in charge of OPR now, make them do that in the sunlight, as always. Make sure that everyone knows this is something that's ongoing. How is it being affected? Personnel changes. That's what's important, is to make them do all these things in the sunlight. That's it for now. We'll keep you posted on this and other cases, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks again for all the comments and replies. It's really helpful to read them.
In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.